All right, now for perpendicular bisector construction. The perpendicular bisector construction will also give you a midpoint of the segment. It will also create perpendicular lines if you ever need to create perpendicular lines. Also, that perpendicular lines make right angles, so that's how you would also construct a right angle. So on this segment, I'm going to do the perpendicular bisector. It's going to be 2 arcs that I'm going to need to construct it. So the first thing I need to do is to open my compass less than half of, or more than half, but less than the whole length of the segment. So make sure that it is wider than halfway, but not the whole distance of the segment. Then we're going to do, I like to do like a half circle. And then we're going to bring this to the other side of the segment, going with a half circle the other direction. These should cross above and below the segment. If you connect the dots where they're crossing, then that will be the perpendicular bisector of the line. And we usually want you to label things, like if this is point A and point B, this would be the midpoint. Sometimes they tell you to call that a certain letter. Then we also want you to mark your congruent segments, like AM is congruent to MB, and label your right angle. So here's the right angle box. So you can see that I'm going to call this C, like CMB is a right angle, so is CMA. And if I had another letter down here, these are also right angles on the bottom. And we've got our perpendicular lines, we've got our congruent segments, we've got our midpoint. So here we made a perpendicular bisector. I'm going to do another one on this short segment. Just to go over it again. So you want your opening to be more than halfway, but less than the whole length. And then one arc from one side, an arc from the other side, and where they cross, connect the dots from where they're crossing. I missed a little bit, I'll move it over. There we go. So now that's the perpendicular bisector, and I'm going to label, if this was P, Q, call this X for the midpoint. Draw in your right angle, because it makes right angles. Draw in your congruent segment markings. You want to mark as much as this is telling you. So you definitely want to mark your midpoint. You want to make sure that people know it's the midpoint by putting in the congruent segment markings. And you want to mark your right angle so people know that that makes perpendicular lines and it makes right angles.